Bonjour everyone and welcome back to Farmers Corners FC French football with the accent, the podcast 100% about French football, Ligue 1, Les Bleus, everything that goes with baguette and frog legs. The episode of today, episode 8, is all about Mercato, all about the farmers market as we call it here. We're just going to focus on what happened in that very, very long Mercato for the season, and we're going to go through basically every single team and what the Mercatos meant for them. We're going to go through a very subjective kind of ranking, going from what I thought was the worst team as far as the Mercato goes and ended up with the best team. Just before we go into that ranking, we're just going to start by talking about the biggest signing of the summer in Ligue 1. So the biggest signing of them all was very early in the Mercato. It was Paris Saint-Germain buying Icardi definitively from Inter for 55 million euros. The second biggest signing was Jonathan David, who went to Lille to replace Osimhen for 31 million euros. The third biggest signing was one of the last signing of the window, with Doku going to Rennes for 26 million euro, the 18-year-old. That's quite the bet there. And then the fourth biggest one was Paqueta from Milan AC going to Lyon for 20 million euros. The club that made the most money out of a single signing, Lille obviously sold Osimhen for over 80 million euro to Napoli. St-Etienne sold Fofana 40 million to Leicester. Lille sold Gabriel Magalhaes 30 million to Arsenal. So Lille number 1 and number 3 as far as sales this window. A bit of money for Gerard Lopez and co. And then the fourth biggest sale was a goalkeeper, Rennes. Rennes sold Mendy 25 million to Chelsea, which I think is the most expensive French goalkeeper, sold by a French team in the history of Ligue 1. Great stuff by Rennes there. We're going to go through all the teams now. It's going to be a bit shorter than my usual podcast, but I think it was important to spend a bit of time on talking about the Mercato. Episode 8, Farmers Market Edition, start now. Music. Alright, the team that I thought did worse on the Mercato, and rightfully so, they didn't buy anyone, it's Bordeaux. Gironde and Bordeaux in 20th position. If we quickly look at what happened for Bordeaux, they sold 3 players. The goalkeeper Bernardoni went to Angers for 7.5 million. Camano signed in Russia, so if I'm not mistaken, for 5.5 million. And Ben Raoult signed to Nimes for 1.5 million. Bordeaux did not recruit anyone except Jean-Louis Gasset, the coach. And I think when you talk to Bordeaux fans, it actually wasn't that surprising that that's what happened as far as the Mercato goes for Bordeaux. Bordeaux is in a world of problem financially, I guess, with their owners, King Street, trying to spend as little money as possible, trying to save every single penny they can save. There's been a lot of noise around the club, a lot of fans not happy with the owner, not happy with the president Longuepé, and asking them again and again to just sell the club and get away from it, because it doesn't look like the Bordeaux that used to be fighting for the first position of Ligue 1. Such a historic club with such successes in the past is now just really struggling. The one sort of way they had also to save money was to get rid, if that's the word, of Paulo Sousa, the coach that was, if I'm not mistaken, earning 2.5 million a year. He was asked to go with his staff. It cost the club 2.6 million to get rid of him, but replacing it by Jean-Louis Gasset, who's earning a little bit less money as far as salary goes, has helped a little bit. Unfortunately, they were not able to do any really big transfer. They had hopes, I think. They maybe even had hopes to sell Basic at one point to Italy for a good amount, but it didn't happen. And so now they were able to sort of save some money as far as wages go, but not to get a big lump sum in, I guess. Unfortunately for them, and unfortunately for where their money was, they ended up being the fourth most successful club in the Ligue as far as making money, selling for 14.5 million and not buying anyone. But I think unfortunately it looks like a very austere period for Bordeaux, not to the happiness of the Bordeaux fans who are, like I said, just keep complaining. If you look at the team though and who's left in Bordeaux, you don't have a bad team. You probably are missing a striker because there's Jimmy Briand or Josh Maja or Wang Guihyo have been playing up front and unfortunately aren't the most lethal strikers we have in Ligue 1. But it's still quite a competitive team with Sabali, Koscielny, Pablo in the defense. Basic, like I say, is having a great beginning of the season next to Otavio, and Adli is on the bench. And then Kalou, Depreville, Odin up front. It's a team that should be able to at least reach the top 10. But obviously, Bordeaux always want a little bit more than play in the middle of the ladder. Obviously, it looks like it's not going to get better in the next Mercato or the one after. Alain Roche, the new director sportif from Bordeaux, sort of did say already that he knew he probably wasn't going to buy anyone in winter, and he was really working on potentially 2021, the summer Mercato next year, or even the one after, trying to sort of save as much money in the meantime, because like I said, their main sponsor, King Street, has already put 30 million to be able to go in front of the DNCG, the financial police in France, and they don't want to put a penny more. So unless they're able to score more sales and more big sales, so if Thomas Pasic keep being this good, they might be able to make some money out of him at the end of the season. I think it's going to be complicated for Bordeaux and their very, very passionate fan base. We'll see how the year pans out, but they've been asking for King Street and Longuepé to leave the club and to sell the club. We'll see if they get to the result they want from the end. Last team on that farmers market ranking, Bordeaux, 20th. Next team on is Reims, le Stade de Reims, who had a bit of a hard beginning of the season as well. Didn't make it to the Europa League and lost 4 times and 1 draw in the first 5 games in Ligue 1, and another draw after that. So they still haven't won. They really don't have the best start of the season. They've recruited Hornby for 2 million and Berisha for 5, Berisha from Lazio, and they sold Camara for 4 million, Disasi for 13, and Dingome I think for less than $1 million, which means they did make 17 million altogether when they spent only 11, so they ended up with a positive balance. But I think it's fair to say that they are less good than they were before the season. They probably would be lucky that they were able to keep Boulaïdja eventually, who was heavily linked with at first Marseille and then Brighton. But they just wish that I think they had a bit more of a strong team. They were able to keep Woodfest to replace Disasi, who definitely is the biggest loss for Reims. And David Guillon, before the end of the Mercato, said that he was sort of happy with how his team was and not really worried about not doing much more on the Mercato, and happy to rely on his team rather than trying to buy another player just to make up the number. I guess it's yet to be proven as far as their performances on the field goes. Reims has had a world of problems in the early games of the season to be dangerous, and like I said, losing in Ligue Europa against an Hungarian team is definitely not the best thing they could do. Guillon did say that it was probably hard for the team to not have the results to start with, and definitely not what they were after, getting only 1 point in 5 games. But he did say that he was counting on these players to find solutions, and he was counting on his staff and himself to help the players finding the solutions. It's not going to be Reims is never going to be a team who's going to recruit heavily amount of players and spend that much amount of money. Already recruiting Ballon Berisha sort of looked like a steal from the outside looking in when it happened. I guess it's yet to be seen what the Albanian player can do for Reims this season. We'll see how the team keeps going. I mean, the loss of Disasi, like I said, looked like the biggest blow and looked like something that's really hard to replace. And Fess has taken a red card in one of the first 6 games already, so he's missed a game and a half because of that. Reims has always been the kind of team that can surprise the rest of the league during the season. We'll see if they can at one point get the good series of results to make it back to the first half of the season, because last season they finished 6th and they qualified for the Europa League playoffs. So they're able to get some results. It just hasn't started the right way for them, and that's why they are now at the 19th spot on my Mercato ranking. The 18th spot, I've put the RC Strasbourg. Actually, when I look at it, maybe I was a little bit harsh on Strasbourg because they might have deserved to be a little bit higher. Strasbourg, who had recruited Aholu on loan, who came back to Strasbourg, and Habib Diallo at the very, very end of the Mercato. Diallo, who was the best goal scorer at Metz last season. Metz was actually a rival club to Strasbourg. There was a bit of a story behind that. Strasbourg, 2 recruits, didn't lose anyone though. Didn't lose specifically Simakan, who was linked with quite a few bigger teams. Having been able to actually keep their team and buying a couple of players to make it better, they really needed a striker, and they did get Habib Diallo. I think is potentially something good for Strasbourg. The reason maybe they're not higher up in the ladder of the Mercato is the way they've recruited Diallo, which doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be successful. To give you a little bit of context on that, Habib Diallo was sort of told by Metz that he had to leave the club because Metz needed the money. Metz in their budget for the incoming season had sort of, I think, pinned 15 or 20 million next to Diallo because they were 100% sure that they were going to sell him to an English club. Diallo last season, I think, was involved in just a bit under 20 goals for Metz, goals and assists together. So they really thought they were going to make that much money. Unfortunately, not a lot of offers came, and then at the very, very end of the Mercato, Strasbourg said that they were happy to make an effort to spend a whole 10 million for Habib Diallo, which Metz wasn't able to refuse at the time. There was a bit of controversy behind that transfer because Metz and Strasbourg are rivals, so the Metz fans were pretty unhappy about their former best striker being sold to a rival, and rightfully so. After the transfer happened, Diallo said in private to a fan in a private message that he didn't know that he was going to Strasbourg. He almost said that he didn't actually want to go to Strasbourg. That what happened was he had agreed to go to a team in England, and he agreed with another team, and that Metz was being greedy and didn't want to accept what Diallo wanted to do and forced him instead to go to Strasbourg because they made the most money. He did say that it wasn't his choice to leave Metz, but it was the Metz leaders, the Metz director that asked him to leave so that they could make the money. And Metz would be pretty happy because they have Nian now who's scoring goals on goals, so they would think they don't need Diallo. But yeah, that was a bit of a story for the last day of the Mercato. Strasbourg, to go back to them, as it stands, have 2 of their best players injured. Motiva, the striker from South Africa, and the goalkeeper Matt Sells. So they have to do with what they have right now. And Thierry Lauré didn't have the best start of the Ligue season. I think after 6 days, 4 goals in, 13 goals against, 18 points, and only 1 win and 5 losses. So not the best start for Strasbourg. Strasbourg was usually known to be a team that's very, very hard to play when they play home at the Stade de la Méno. We didn't enjoy that kind of success for the first 6 games. The addition of Diallo obviously will help in the absence of Lebo Mochiba, and will help Ajorque and Thomasson up front to score goals, hopefully, if he can find the same form that he had last season with Metz. But besides that, like I said, the fact that they were able to keep Simakan is definitely a big plus for Strasbourg defensively, who weren't able to perform well earlier in the season. Kenny Lala, their right back, was set to potentially be a target for Marseille, but I think it turns out he's not going to go there, so they're also going to be able to keep a player that has been one of the best player 3 years ago and then was a little bit less good 2 years ago, and last season was in between, I guess. But it was good, I guess, for Strasbourg that they were able to keep all those players. I was just a little bit doubtful about Diallo and the way they recruited him, especially when he started saying that he actually didn't really want to go to Strasbourg. And that's why I put them on the 18th position. And 17th, it's the other team that was in the Diallo Mercato. It's Metz. Metz, who recruited Pajot, Ambrose, Wagner, Kaya, Chimbembe, and Kouyaté, and sold Diallo. So Metz, by selling Diallo for 10 millions, just sort of almost made it as far as balancing their sales. They are bought for almost 15 million, so they've lost 5 million in the window, and yeah, Metz by selling Diallo really sort of made it to their money. Otherwise, they would have had issues apparently as far as their budget goes. There was a little bit, like I was saying earlier, speaking about Strasbourg, there was a little bit of uproar, I guess, by the Metz fan, knowing that their former best striker was going to be sold to the Alsatian team, and he went all the way as far as, I should say, graffiti being found on the club's headquarters to show the unhappiness of the fans. Besides that sale, that was a little bit of an issue. I think Metz would be sort of not too bothered because Nian really started shining earlier this season, so at least you're not losing a striker without being able to replace him. Nian has been exceptional at the beginning of the season so far. The rest of the purchases that they made during the summer, not all of them are going to be used often. Ambrose has been starting at the bench, and last season when he was there, he was also on the bench. Wagner is somebody that I might be able to count on, but we haven't seen it yet. Chimbembe, who is on loan from Paris Saint-Germain, has a lot of talent, but he's a young player, and it's going to be, I guess, a matter of seeing how the team develops together. Vincent Ognon didn't have the best results earlier either, and if it wasn't for Nian, they would not maybe have been able to get 7 points in the last 3 games, because Nian scored 5 goals in those last 3 games. Metz, we don't expect them to end up in the European position, but they definitely are trying to stay in Ligue, and I think their Mercato maybe lacked a little bit of ambition, and I think another centre back would not have been astray. But look, they were able to keep some of their best players as well. They were able to keep Okija as a goalkeeper, and maybe we're going to be surprised and they might do something nice in Ligue 1, but I've put them at my 17th position on my rankings. 16th, I put Montpellier, the team of the stars. Montpellier, who actually had a very good beginning of the season, but Montpellier on the Mercato did not sell anyone and bought 2 players, Omelin, the goalkeeper, and Mavdidi, the striker who came from Juventus. The reason why I put them on the 16th position, I guess it's because I feel like even though they were able to keep all their players, I feel like Omelin might not have been the best goalkeeper to get, even though it was a bargain, 6 million from Basel, and we've seen early this season that there was a few things that maybe he could have done better, but also they didn't look at potentially getting more like another centre back or maybe another centre midfield, because their players aren't that young. The center backs, Hilton, the captain, is 43, Congré is 36. It's not the youngest defense. Mind you, like I said, they are doing a fantastic beginning of the season, and up front, Savanier with Delors and Laborde are very, very successful so far. But I think I was just maybe a little bit harsh with them because they played it really safe. Der Zakarian really played on continuity and great that they were able to keep their team. But you would maybe think, maybe I'll be proven wrong if Stevie Mavdidi, the striker, ends up actually being a big success, and whenever he replaces Laborde or Delors, he starts scoring and potentially taking their spot up front. But as far as it goes right now, I was really thinking that they really played it safer than trying to actually get to the next stage as far as the ladder. It's a team that I think can potentially play almost European spots if they play well, but because they don't have the deepest bench, it's going to be hard to keep the level that they've been at the beginning of the season. Der Zakarian is also not a coach that's known to play some crazy, beautiful offensive football, which is why it's nice to see what's happening right now in Montpellier. We'll have to see if they keep that way or if they're gonna have to buy more players when it comes to the winter mercato. They've been praised in France for that matter for their mercato because they were able to keep all their players. But to be honest, Savanier was good last season, but really that first few games of the season is really what put him where he is right now, where everyone says that he almost would deserve a call for Les Bleus in the French national team, which I think it's too early for. But Delors and Laborde, who are maybe the two other players that are really good this season. Same thing, last season they were good without being amazing. Delors was back in Ligue after a stint in Mexico, and he had trouble actually finding the back of the net. And Laborde, this season he's at 4 assists already in 6 games, 3 or 4 assists. We didn't see that yet last season, so we'll see how they go. I have put them in the 16th position because I thought they were a bit too conservative in how they went through their mercato. In 15th position, I put FC Nantes, who have bought this season Moses Simon, who they just exerced their buying option. They've also got Kirivella free from the under 23 of Liverpool. It's actually not a bad shout, Kirivella. And then just before the end of the mercato, or just after the end of the mercato, I should say, because they were free agents, they got Jean-Kévin Augustin and Sébastien Corchia, the right back, should be arriving. They've just loaned 2 players, Dupé and Wage, and that's all as far as it goes for sales. So Nantes, who bought for 5 million and only sold for like 0.5 million if I'm not mistaken. So they lost a bit of money, but they hadn't spent too much money anyway. Nantes, who's actually probably have issues because they didn't spend enough money. They're struggling a little bit up front. I think adding a striker would definitely not go astray, and that's why they got Jean-Kévin Augustin. Now, Jean-Kévin Augustin, who's the former Leipzig player, to start with, hasn't played since February and hasn't scored since October 30th last year. So to give you a little bit of a rundown, Jean-Kévin Augustin was formed in Paris. They come from the Paris Academy, then signed for Leipzig a few years back, played in that semi-final, the Europa League semi-final against Marseille, that Marseille won to be able to make it to the Europa League final, and then was loaned to Monaco last season for only the first 6 months. Monaco didn't want to keep him because he didn't perform. That's when he scored his last goal in Coupe de la Ligue against Marseille on the 30th of October. Then at the winter mercato, he was loaned to Leeds with a buying option. So that's where it gets complicated legally. Leeds had agreed to a buying option that was automatic depending on how many games Augustin had played, if I'm not mistaken. And he played the amount of games, but Bielsa didn't want to keep Augustin, so he asked the club to send him back to RB Leipzig without playing. That didn't happen, so Leipzig assumed, or I guess played the card of Leeds is now forced to give us the money to buy Augustin, and Leeds play the card of, no, we never wanted to keep him, so we don't owe you the money. So that part is now in front of the court, and because all this is happening, Nantes and Jean-Kevin Augustin, when they spoke with their legal advisors, I guess took the road of, well, Augustin is then a free agent, so we can get him for free. So that's what happened. He just signed for free, while in the meantime the feud between Leipzig and Leeds is actually not sorted yet. So that hopefully will not be a problem for Nantes in the future. But it is not a bad signing, Jean-Kevin Augustin. We just haven't seen him playing in so long that we don't actually know what's going to happen. Maybe a club like Nantes is the perfect way for him to get back into it. There's a few good young players. I'm thinking about Blas, I'm thinking about Louza. Kirivela has actually been alright when he's played this season. But I think the reason why they are in number 15 is probably because they got Augustin and potentially Corsia at the end, and Moses and Kirivela that are Simon and Kirivela, sorry, that are both in their starting lineup. But they would have been higher if they would have potentially got somebody in defense and center back to help Palois, or to help him when he's not there as well. We'll see what's going to happen in the future as well. They have Albin Lafont, this goalkeeper who is international under 21 and who is a lot of promises, but I think in Nantes he's got so much work to do that it's not helping him, and we're seeing a lot of mistakes. Is slowly but surely sort of losing that title of Pépite, as we call them, as of Nugget. He was said to be one of the best up and coming goalkeepers, and now we're seeing quite a bit of flaws in his game. So we'll see how that goes for Nantes in the future. But yeah, in the Mercato, in our farmers market, I put them in position 15, and I think they don't deserve to be any higher for now. Number 14 is St-Etienne. St-Etienne in the Mercato, they've I guess used their buying option on Kolo Jesak for 4 million. They got Aouchiche, the young Paris Academy, for free, and on the last day they got Retsos from Bayer Leverkusen for 8 million, the centre back, to replace Fofana that they sold for 40 million to Leicester. They also sold Mvila in Turkey or in Greece, sorry, I can't remember. They sold Gioni to Angers, and Wagner and Honora. So Wagner for 3 million and Honora for 5 million. St-Etienne, who also went through, I guess, a change of culture, I guess a cultural change within their club. So since Claude Puel took over, and Claude Puel is that very respected coach in France, since he took over, he basically tried to make his club a little bit healthier, and there was a few players that Puel deemed to be, I guess, a problem in the locker room. So we're talking about Yann Mvila, Ryan Boudebouz, potentially Waib Kazri, and so he tried to basically tell those players, that they're not welcome in the club anymore, and that they're welcome to try and find another club for them. And while he did that, what he did in the club is give their chance to younger players. So Bouanga, who was great last season, is still the one who's sort of in charge of the offense for St-Etienne. With Aouchiche, it works pretty well. Aouchiche is so talented, this young player. And then it gave a chance to Nordin, to Masson, a bunch of young players that are pretty good. The problem at St-Etienne, as far as the Mercato goes, is that they really, really, really needed a striker, and they did not get one. And they might get one now. They're working on it as far as that Joker kind of rule. But the only sort of real striker would be Charles Abbey. And he got injured against Marseille, and then since that, they just don't have a striker. They tried to put Hamouma, but he's really more of an offensive midfielder, and then they tried to put Kadri, but same thing, he's an offensive midfielder, and he took a red card at the last game. So they really needed a striker, and they were not able to find one. What they're working on right now is to try and get Mbaye Niang from Rennes. Rennes, when they recruited Guirassy has been amazing since the beginning of the season, so they realized that maybe they don't need Mbaye Niang, and Mbaye Niang made it sort of clear that he thought he was going to leave Rennes specifically to go to Marseille during the summer, but it didn't happen. And now St-Etienne is working maybe a loan, maybe a transfer for Mbanyang, and St-Etienne really, really needs, like I said, a striker, because they're playing some good football and they are a good team early in the season, and they had a fantastic start to the season up until they just lost 3-0 against Rennes in the weekend. But they are definitely that kind of team that can do something really, really positive in Ligue 1 if they are able to put those chances in the back of the net, which they haven't been able to do, unfortunately, recently. Sorry, I said that they lost 3-0 against Rennes. They lost 2-0 against Lens, last weekend, and before that they had lost 3-0 against Rennes. But yeah, Saint-Etienne, who could be a very good surprise with their youth this season, if they are able to either sign Mbanyang or to find a solution to their lack of clinical finishing, and that's why they are in 14th position. In 13th, so now we're starting to get, I think, to actually successful Mercato. I think, in my opinion, those farmers markets are getting into the successful side of things. So in 13th, it's Brest, who bought during this off-season Le Douaron, Fèvre, Honora, Pierre Gabriel on loan, Tavares, Erel, Mounier, and Filipotto. Why is this a successful transfer window? Because I think last season Brest wasn't going to be able to actually get those players. I think last season those players would have chosen to be to go somewhere else, and I think Brest sort of became a little bit more attractive to players that think that it's a project that first make them look good in Ligue 1, and second that has real chances of finishing in the top 10. Brest, of course, sold one player, Diallo, for 15 million, who's now playing for the Saints of Southampton. But all those recruits that they found, Fèvre already made an impact, and he was bought for 400 million, already made a very good impact and scored a couple of goals coming from the youngster coming from Monaco. Le Douaron is said to be one of those future talents. Erel is actually a very good defender. Filipotto, leaving Nimes, he was a very interesting midfielder in Nimes, and now in Brest he's going to be able to bring a bit more offense. And of course, Steve Mounier, coming from Huddersfield, he is definitely going to be very, very good for Brest, and potentially will be able to bring them that offensive clinical finishing, again, I like this word, that they need if they want to be able to make it in Ligue 1 and to stay, and to, I guess, make their stay a little bit better than just fighting to avoid relegation week in, week out. Brest, who's won 3 out of the 6 games, so they lost 2, won 2, lost 1, won 1, so they're not having a bad beginning of the season, and I think it's probably worth saying that they're one of the surprises of early this season, because even against good team, even against Marseille in their first loss, they lose 3-2, so they really fight hard to be able to come back in every game that they've played, and I think, having those between 8 recruits, having 4 or 5 of them that are actually strider on the starting lineup really shows how good their Mercato has been and how important that summer window was for the Bretons team, and that's why I put them as a 13th spot. In 12th position, I've put Angers, who have recruited Bernardoni, the goalkeeper, for 7.5 million, Doumbia for 3, Ebose for 3, Dionne for a small amount, Cabot for 3, and at the very end of the Mercato, Amadou and Boufal, both for 3. I think what's very important to me as far as Angers goes, and I spoke about this in my very, very first episode of Farmers Corners FC, is that they are dealing with a shit show as far as their back of house goes. They're dealt with a sporting director who was fired for several mistakes. They're dealing with a president who's been sued for sexual harassment, a player who's been sued for exhibitionism. So they're dealing with a lot of bad stuff in the background, and they've recruited during COVID Sébastien Larcier, who's the new sporting director, a young sporting director, only 43 years old, and he's actually doing a good job during that Mercato. They were able to, Amadou, they got him on loan from Seville, but they were able to get Bernardoni, who was a very good, was a very good goalkeeper, coming from Bordeaux, spent last season on loan at Nimes. A very good young goalkeeper, 23 years old, and one of those keepers that we think is going to be one of the next for France. Getting also, Diony from St-Etienne, who's been just in this kind of player who doesn't have a lot of confidence in the last couple of years, but we saw that he can do things. He's got potential, is what I was looking for. The most important thing I think that I've been doing is able to get Bouffal back. Bouffal from Southampton, who was formed in Angers. That's where he started playing, and being able to get the player back will definitely help them offensively. The question mark for Angers is now that they've lost Aït Nouri, who left at the very end of the transfer window for Wolverhampton, who's going to play on their left side. I think Stéphane Moulin, the coach, was pretty emotional when Aït Nouri left, and that's because they just hoped that they were going to keep him. They made a bit of money from Aït Nouri and also from Santa Maria, who left to Fribourg from 12 million euros. So they, as far as selling, they've also made enough money, and they won't complain about it. But I think to be able to be competitive, that addition of Bouffal on the very, very last day was really a plus for Angers. Angers, who's trying to obviously get closer to the top 10. And if they make it, then I think we could say that last year's first season was a success. Mind you, before Angers lost 4-1 against Montpellier in the second or the third game, I can't remember. Stéphane Moulin wasn't very happy with his sporting director because he felt like he was missing players after he had sold Santa Maria to Fribourg. But yeah, like I said, being able to get Bouffal, being able to get Amadou from Sevilla without spending any money is definitely something really, really good as far as Angers go. Amadou, he was one of the best players in Lille 3 years ago, and since that he didn't shine in Seville, but coming back in a league that he knows could definitely help him. We'll see how Angers goes, but it's a team that has really played some good football, and being able to also keep players like Pierre Capel that have been great last season and are still having a good start of this season as well. Full Genie in the midfield as well. There's that continuity going on for Angers too that is very interesting to see, and that's why I put them at the 12th position. In 11th position, one of the busiest team on the transfer window, Dijon, who bought Scheidler back from loan. They got Ebimbe on loan, Diop on loan, Dubre, Panzo, Chala, the Ecuadorian player on loan, Asale, Selina, Alakbe, Boy on loan, and Zagre on loan. Busy the Dijon team, and I think they've actually done a good recruitment. They missed out at the very, very last minute on Ali Sow, the striker from Sofia, for just an issue of paperwork. As far as the sales go, they sold Aguerd to Reims. That was a bit of a big loss. Lost Tavares. They lost their two goalkeeper. Alfred Gomis went to Rennes as well for 10 million, and Renarsson went famously to Arsenal, for 1.5 million. The replacement to Gomis was Alakbe, who came from Niort and came for 1 million and played his first game over the weekend, and unfortunately conceded 3 times during this first game. But I think Dijon did a smart young recruitment. I think Alakbe is going to be very interesting. Asale and Selina, who's from Albania, are two something young, good players. Chala on loan from Ecuador has been a little bit hyped on social media from people following South American football, because Ecuadorian have that grinta and that flair for football that we love to see in Ligue 1. And Panzo, young player who's already playing as centre back for Dijon. I think there was a lot of smart recruitment. The two very, very last players, Zagre and Boe. 20 years old, right back from Rennes on loan without buying option, is definitely someone that can bring a bit to Dijon and to their coach Jobard. But yeah, I think Dijon deserves that 11th place because we've seen early on that those players can definitely add something to a team who's been struggling last season, who sort of made it very, very late in it, but also who's been struggling early in the season. They've only got 1 point in the first 6 games. So when those players, the Assalé, the Selina, the Boé, Zagre, are going to get into the rhythm and able to bring something to a team who's lost their goalkeeper and their best defender, hopefully we're going to see it turning on. The reason why I put them 11th on that Mercato ranking is because I think that it is a smart recruitment and that we are going to see it coming up properly. 10th position is Lorient. Lorient, the first of the 2 promoted teams in Ligue 1. Lorient, who got Morel for free, Boigard for 2 million, Gerbich 3 million plus bonus, it's going to go over 10 million, Dreyer for free, Monconduit for 2 million, Lorienté for 4 million, Gravilen in loan from Inter Milan, and Mofi for 8 million. And they sold Meslier for 6.5 million to Leeds. Meslier was already playing in Leeds last season on loan, and they're also getting rid of Cabot plus quite a few players who were at the end of their contract. The Mercato was sort of finished after they bought Mofi last season. Mofi that they bought for 8 million from Courtrai in Belgium, and was one of those young players that should be a potential good striker. They got him because Garbage got injured as well, so it was timely. I think Lorient has shown that defensively they're not quite there yet. So the addition of Gravillon might help as far as that goes. But I think what they've seen as well is that buying players that know Ligue 1 like Lorienté, like Monconduit, like Morel will definitely help building this club, building the experience in a club that just came from Ligue 2, and that doesn't want to go back to it. They won the first game against Lens and then 3 losses, 1 draw and another loss. So like I said, definitely not the best start for Lorient. But look, they still kept some very interesting player. They kept Wissa up front, who's very, very solid striker for Lorient. They got Gerbich to come and help him. Like I said, they also got Mofi eventually to come and help him as well. But they got the player that they needed, Andreu Gravillon, who came from Inter Milan, and Trevo Chalobah, who came on loan from Chelsea, are 2 players that are going to help a lot defensively when they are coming back in form, which should be after the international break. So we should see them playing potentially next weekend. That's going to be the real start for Lorient, I think, when those 2 players starts. Lorient that I put on 10th position. 9th position, we're getting on the top of the ladder now. 9th, I put Lyon. Lyon, we've talked a lot of them during that Mercato. Lyon, a lot of activity in Lyon. Let's go. We're going to start with the sales for Lyon. They sold Gouiri for 7 million, Terrier for 12, Solette for 4.5 million, Kalulu left for free, Marsal 2 million, Tete 3 million, Tatarusanu 0.5 million, Traoré for 18 million, and then they loaned Andersen and Jeff Rennes Adelaide. In the meantime, they bought Toko Ekambi for 11.5 million, sent Oskasar, the Turkish defender, for 1.5 million, Pollersbeck for 0.5 million. They got Desilio on loan, Bellarmi at the very end, and Paqueta from Milan AC for 20 million. It was the first Mercato with Bruno Cherou, head of the recruitment, and it was the first Mercato with Garcia as the first summer Mercato with Garcia as the coach, because he joined the team midway through last season, even though if it was before the winter Mercato. I don't think it's a bad Mercato. I think they did pretty okay. I think the recruitment of Paqueta is great for Lyon, and it gives them definitely the best midfield in Ligue 1, maybe minus Paris Saint-Germain, but Paqueta, Kakere, Bruno Guimaraes, Thiago Mendes, Aouar, a lot of teams would pay a lot of money to be able to get that. Lyon managed to make money during this summer window as well. They spent 33 million and they made 48 million. So in the meantime, they made 15 million benefit, which is very important for somebody like Olas. Olas, speaking of which, who commented on the Mercato afterwards and said, being able to keep Houssem Aouar, Memphis Depay, and Moussa Dembélé, three of which were told that they were said to leave during the summer window, and Aouar was heavily linked with Arsenal. Depay was supposed to go to Barcelona, and Dembélé supposedly had offers from England. Jean-Michel Aulas said that being able to keep those three players shows how strong economically Lyon is, and shows that they didn't have to sell them at all costs, and they were able to sort of stand their ground asking for the money that they wanted to have. Interestingly enough, Lyon hasn't been great early in this season. They haven't played well at all, and I think a lot of supporters aren't happy with what they're seeing on the field for Lyon, and they are blaming Rudi Garcia for it. That said, De Cilio, one of the last recruits for Lyon, is definitely a choice by Rudi Garcia, so I doubt that Rudi Garcia is going anytime soon. He's at the end of the season. He doesn't have any contract anymore, so I think he'll be done at the end of the season, but I'll be surprised if he leaves before that. Besides the obvious, I think being able to get rid of a lot of players that were just sort of half good enough for Lyon, Marsal, Tete, Traoré, is something good for them. Losing Terrier and Guiri is probably a little bit less good, especially when you see right now that what they really miss is a winger. And the fact that they were not able to get a winger is probably why they're only 9th and not higher on my Milo Mercato ranking. But yeah, I think they did make money. They did find players to make the team better, namely Paqueta, and Toko Ekambi. No, I'm just joking. Toko Ekambi did not make it better. And they did find a few players that could be good in the future, Oscar Sarr and Paul Speck specifically. So I think it's not a complete failure, this Mercato. I think it's important that they were able to lower their wages by getting rid of so many players as well, and there was a lot of dead weight in that team. I would think they would have been happier if either Memphis or Aouar or Dembélé had left to again lighten up the squad a little bit, and again if they had Pelistri, who they looked for the Ecuadorian winger or any other winger, I think they would have been almost a perfect Mercato for them. Right now 9th on the ladder, on my little ladder, because I think it's still a positive Mercato, and I am looking forward to seeing Paqueta playing, and I think it might be one of the best players in Ligue 1 this season. 8th on the ladder is OM, Olympique de Marseille. Marseille, who exercised the buying option on Alvaro Gonzalez for 4 million, got Gay for free, Balerji on loan with buying option from Dortmund, Nagatomo for free, Luis Enrique, the young Pepite from Brazil, for 8 million, and the biggest one, Cuisance, on the very last day, loaned with a buying option of 18 millions. In the meantime, they lost Nkunku for free to Everton, they lost Lihaji for free to Lille, Sarr was sold 10 millions to Bayern Munich, which was a bit surprising on the very last day, and Maxim Lopez was loaned to Sassuolo with a buying option of 1 to 3 million depending on bonuses. The purchase or the addition of the Mercato for Marseille was definitely Pablo Longoria, the sportive director, former head scout in Valence, and with a very, very large, broad experience as a scout, the nerdy young sporting director for Marseille. I think we've seen a little bit of an impact with the addition of Luis Enrique. We've seen his his understanding, his complicity with André Villas-Boas, with finding Nagatomo, with being able to get Cuisance into the deal when they sold Sarr to Bayern Munich. And we'll see if it keeps happening with maybe the addition of a right back. They were supposed to have found that right back coming from Genk in Belgium. He actually flew all the way to France, the Danish right back, whose name is going off from my head right now. But anyway, he flew, and the agreement, was for 10 millions, if I'm not mistaken, with Genk, and at the very, very last minute, apparently Genk asked for a bit money. So it's Joachim Male is his name, Joachim Mele Pedersen. They at the very last minute, Genk asked for 15 million, and Marseille said no, and so Male had to take the plane and fly back to Genk, which he said he wasn't happy about it, but it is what it is, and so now he's not coming to Marseille, he's staying in Genk, and Marseille is looking for another right back, and they're looking in Ligue 1 because they can sign a joker. There was talk about maybe Lala, and it's a no, maybe CGB, and it's a no, and now we're talking about Fouquet, who is also Danish, I think, and who might join as a quality of the joker. As far as the Mercato goes, keeping the team that brought Marseille to League Champion last year, I think is big. They didn't really add anyone who can actually be in the starting lineup except Cuisance very, very late in the window. And again, André Villas-Boas loves his midfield, Camara, Rongier, Sanson. So Cuisance, what he brings to this midfield is a little bit more firepower, a little bit more of an ability to actually score from long range, and also a left foot, which we don't have in the midfield. Gay also is a left-footed player, and actually was very interesting to see him playing against Lyon. Quite a strong midfielder. What they did is really making sure that almost every single position had a solid replacement. So Balerdi is here to replace either Alvaro or Chaitacha. Gay is here to replace Camara. Nagatomo has been added for competition to both the left side Amavi and the right side Sakai, and also to bring a little bit of experience. And Luis Enrique is here to bring competition to Payet once he's going to be ready to play. So I think they've done a smart recruitment. What fans of Marseille are a little bit annoyed about is that we didn't get another striker. Benedetto is a little bit light as a striker by himself. So either it's a change of a tactic, because a 4-3-3 with Benedetto by himself still hasn't really worked, or maybe he's going to try Luis Enrique potentially as a striker. Marley Ake, the few times that he came in, did not make a lot of difference either. We'll see. The first 6 games of the season weren't the easiest for Marseille, and now they're going to go into a series that should be a little bit less complicated. We'll see how that team turns out, specifically when the Champions League comes, which is 2 weeks away, with games against Manchester City, Porto, and Olympiacos. It's not going to be easy for Marseille. They are 8th on my farmers market ladder. In 7th position, I've put Nimes, with another of those great sporting director who started last season, Reda Hamash, who has a few nicknames in Nimes, whether it's called Le Professor in reference to La Casa de Papel, the Netflix series about those bank robbers, who's also called the mastermind of robberies. He's recruited Ben Raoult for 1.5 million, Rennes, the goalkeeper, for 0.5 million, Mailing from Rosenborg for 1 million, Burner for free from Nice, Kubas for 3 million, the midfielder was so good against Montpellier, and then at the very end, Eliasson, the winger from Bristol, 24 years old, and Aribi, Algerian forward from l'Étoile de Sahel, who's 26 years old. They've only sold Philippe Otto for 0.5 million. I think what was great for Nimes is that they were able to actually keep all their team and to just add people where it was necessary, and they've only spent not even 10 million. So I think it's definitely shown all the experience and all the savoir-faire of Reda Hamash. Reda Hamash, the sporting director, I spoke about him again in the very first podcast about Nimes, who used to work with Luis Campos, and you can see that he's find the right players because he's got the experience of scouting, and he was able to find the players that were not going to be too expensive yet were going to bring the most value to his team. And I think it's very important for a team of the level of Nimes, who's not yet willing to go and play European spots, but still wants to slowly immerse themselves in that Ligue 1, slowly settle in that Ligue 1 and become one of those teams that is not worried about relegation anymore. Reda Hamash, as well as his scouting experience, brought his leadership and his professionalism to the team by sorting out their training center, sorting out their canteen, sorting out plenty of things that will make this club slowly but slowly better and better and better. And that's something that we're really looking forward to see in Ligue 1 this season. Nîmes getting better and better. Then that's why Nîmes ended up being 7th position in my Farmers Market ranking. 6th position, things are getting serious. Monaco have bought during this window Disasi for 13 million, Caio Henrique for 10 million, Voland for 15 million, Manone for 3, and Florentino Luis on loan. They have sold Glick for 3 million, for 3 million, Penzo for 2 million, and heaps of players on loan. Monaco, before the season, if you count the academy player, had 76 player under contract. 76 player under contract. It's huge for any team, even more for a team that's not playing any European football. They got rid of 42 players. 15 of them were at the end of their contract, 11 were transferred, and 16 were loaned. It was the first Mercato for another addition in the back of house in Ligue 1, Paul Mitchell, the very, very famous sporting director who did some good things back in England, and also for Niko Kovac, the new coach of Monaco. And I think that they very, very smartly recruited Disasi, great addition in defense. His association with Badiashile already shown a lot of promises. Kevin Voland is obviously a big name to bring up front. He hasn't really shown how good he was going to be, but being able to add a player like this in his team is really going to help. I think keeping the likes of Ben Yedder and Chouameni and even Cesc Fabregas, giving those players is very important, and being able to get loans like Florentino Luis and younger players like Caio Henrique is something that Paul Mitchell really wants to do, bringing young player that can become the future of Monaco while keeping experienced player. Monaco has been that team that has usually made a lot of money by selling players. That's not what happened this summer. This summer they spent 40 million and only made 13, so they are 26 million down, which is worse only to Paris Saint-Germain, who made 5 million and sold 5 million and spent 61 million. So this season was not about making money for Monaco. It was about building a team that can be successful and comfortable. They've also started launching young players in their team. Sofiane Diop came from the academy. Matsima, who's playing against Brest also, and some players like Matazo or Mio, who came in against Strasbourg and Brest, showed some promise as well. I think Monaco under Paul Mitchell is going to be a totally different ball game, and I think he might bring them back into that top 5 where they definitely belong. And when you have an attack of Getson Martins, Ben Yedder, and Kevin Voland, if those 3 players start playing the way they're supposed to play, I think they're going to do a lot of damage. In France, they are in 6th position in my farmers market, and I think there's a chance they'll go higher in the next window. In 5th, I've put Paris Saint-Germain. Paris, who are in 5th, probably because of that very last day that was very, very smart for Paris Saint-Germain. Paris, who's bought Icardi, who ended up being the most expensive signing of the window for Ligue 1 for 55 million, Sergio Rico, the goalkeeper, for 6 million, Florenzi on loan, Le Tellier for 3, the goalkeeper as well, Moise Kean on loan, Danilo on loan, and Rafinha for 3 million. In the meantime, they've lost Thiago Silva, Cavani, Meunier, and Kouassi, and Aouchiche for free. Areola was loaned, and they've only sold Mbesso for 5 million, the young player, and Kalimwendo was given on loan as well. Look, if Paris Saint-Germain hasn't sold Mbappé, that means it's a good Mercato. So next season will be the bad Mercato when they're going to sell Mbappé. They were able to keep all their team, basically. Thiago Silva it was sort of a done deal that he was not going to stay, and Marquinhos was going to come back in defense. Cavani, they thought they were not going to use him anymore. Meunier, they didn't want him anymore. So the player that they've lost, except the youngers, Kouassi and Aouchiche, they didn't want to keep them anyway, and they sort of made plans to play without them. What they really missed, and I've said that in every single podcast, is a strong holding midfielder. And now they have Danilo Pereira from Porto, which is exactly what they need. 1.90 or 1.88 tall, like Grinta, like we say, a very scrappy midfielder, one that like to, I guess you can compare him a little bit to Vieira, the way he plays. He like to bring his feet in between everyone's legs and get the ball back from them. So really the midfielder that they needed. And they got him. Getting Rafinha in the midfield as well is going to make that midfield a bit stronger. Moise Kean up front, I don't know. To be honest, I don't think it's a good choice, but we never know. He might be good to replace Icardi, because Icardi doesn't really have a good replacement. And Florenzi, very, very good loan. We've already seen him in right back, making an immediate impact. I think Florenzi and Danilo Pereira are going to be in that starting 11 most of the season with Thomas Tuchel. The rest of the players are maybe going to be playing the second role. It's an important Mercato for Paris because it might be the last of the Tuchel era. Everyone thinking that Tuchel will be done at the end of the season, if it's not before, depending on his results in Europe and in Ligue, of course. But also it was sort of the comeback Mercato of Leonardo, where he was able to make some last minute moves and recruit some player late. It wasn't the best, smoothest Mercato, but at the end of the day, when you look at specifically Florenzi, Icardi, Danilo Pereira and Rafinha, it's a successful Mercato. Those are players that any team in Ligue would like to get. The reason why they're only 5th and not higher is because I think that even though they had it sort of sorted and accounted for, losing Thiago Silva, Cavani, Aouchiche, Meunier, is losing quite a bit of talent. And up until the last day, they had not replaced everyone, and it cost them, mind you, the COVID situation was in the middle, but it cost them a couple of games early in the season, and you gotta hope for them that they're gonna have a perfect season after that, because there's a few teams around them that are happy to have ready to have a perfect season as well. PSG 5th on my farmers markets ladder. 4th position, and maybe a surprise to see them that high, but I think it's because the results have been here already, is Lens. Lens, who has recruited Corentin Jean, who was on loan last season and who was bought for 1 million, Klos for free, Bade for free, Medina for 6 million, Kakuta loan with buying option from Amiens, Ganago 6 million from Nice, for Fana 10 millions, and Kalimundo on loan at the very last day. And they've only lost a few players at the end of their contract, but nothing crazy. Lens with their Mr. Gisolfi, their sporting director as well, one of those new personalities that will be known, I think, in Europe if they keep if they keep doing such great Mercato. I think we've seen the results straight away. Ganago involved in 4 goals, and got 3 penalties for Lens. Kakuta, who scored 4 and gave 3 assists. Medina, who's already been called in the Argentine national team after a few games with Lens. Mind you, he was known down there in Argentina as well. Kalimundo probably will be good for the future. Having Klos and Bade for free is definitely a great shout. Lens did what was very, very important, which is getting players that were going to get a club from Ligue 2 straight away performing in Ligue, and they did not recruit every single player. They kept Leca as a goalkeeper, and they kept the defense sort of almost as it was, but bringing a few players per line to be able to make the team better is not an easy task, and that's exactly what they've done. The only sort of not surprise, but the only issue right now is Sekou Fofana, who is their most expensive recruit the most expensive recruit of their history. 10 million euros is the most they've ever spent. He was playing in Serie A with Udinese, and he was a very, very good midfielder in Udinese. He just has an hamstring injury that unfortunately got him again when he played a few minutes in Ligue 1 this season. So we're going to have to wait to see how good he's going to be, and he's probably going to help Cahuzac and so on in the midfield. But besides that, just a smart recruitment. Kalimundo came with a buying option, so if he performs well, Lens will keep him, and he's only 18 years old. The Bade is only 19 years old. It's an interesting mercato. It's players that are not all old. Kakuta is maybe the most experienced of those players that they've bought, and I think that Lens, with the beginning of their season, they're fourth on the third, on the ladder with 13 points, only one loss in the first game against Lorient, is showing that there might be a team that is not ready to go back to Ligue 2 straight away, that they don't even have to fight for relegation, because a start like this, if they keep going, they'll end up finishing in the top 10 without any issue, and I think it's kudos to their job in the Mercato, because they got the right player at the right time, and that's why they're just before the podium in my Farmers Market ladder. Alright, the podium then starts now. Number 3 in Nice. Nice recruited Robson Bamboo, 8 million, Daniliuc, 3, Schneiderlin, 2 million, Camara, 4 million, Gouiri, 7 million, Ronnie Lopez on loan, Lotomba, 6 million, Dacunia, 1 million, and Jeffren Adelaide. On loan, they lost Ganago for 6 million, Erel for 4, Tameze for 3, Cyprien on loan, Makengo 3.5, and Berner for 3. Nice, whose only lost player who potentially weren't playing for them anyway. So I don't think they mind the player that they've lost. And the player that they've bought, Bamboo got injured early on, but he's a player that's going to play next to Dante most likely all season. Daniliuc, who came from under 23 Bayern Munich, who was one of those young talent that is promised to a great future. Schneiderlin, the very experienced midfielder, who's already making a difference. Gouiri, obviously, we don't have to present him so talented up front. Ronnie Lopez, who didn't really make it in Sevilla and back on loan, who's definitely going to make an impact, I think, down the line. All those players, and Jeffren Adelaide, who had issues with Lyon, and who's coming on loan, and every time he played in Angers and a few times he played in Lyon, he really lit up the field. I think he's one of those very, very strong midfielder that can make a difference in Ligue 1. All those players, one after the other, really should bring this to that next dimension that they're supposed to reach this season, to that next level that Ineos put them in. I think, like we said in the last podcast, the problem might be Vieira, the coach, who's maybe a little bit too safe in the way he plays, not enough offensive as far as tactics goes, and I think that's maybe a problem for all the fans of Nice, but also for the actual team to be able to play the right football. But with the player that he has now on the park, I doubt that it's going to be a problem for too long, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Nice stay in that top 4 at the end of the season with the team that they have. I don't know if they're going to be able to perform in Europa League as well as they might perform in Ligue 1, but I really expect, unless bad injuries, I really expect to see them all up there. The problem might be for them then next Mercato, they might lose a few players. They have a lot of very, very talented players in that team, and I think people would be happy to spend a bit of money to get them, from the goalkeeper Benitez to the striker Dolberg. People that are worth a little bit of money, so we'll see how that ends up for them, but I think they really deserve that 3rd place on my Farmers Market ladder. Number 2 is Lille. Lille, who had bought Lihaji for free, Yemaz for free, Andre Gomez for free, Capi for free, Botman only 8 millions, Canes is the second goalkeeper 4 millions, and Jonathan David for 31 millions. In the meantime, they sold Alonso for 3 millions, Osimhen 80 million, and Gabriel Magalhaes for 30 million. Just a smart recruitment for Lille. Kept their main talent, kept Ikone, kept Bamba, ended up keeping Soumare, who was supposed to go to England, and now they're keeping it in the midfield, which is a great midfielder. Kept Maignan as a goalkeeper. I think they were already a good team. They made that team a little bit better. A mix of players with an immediate impact like Burak Yilmaz and Jonathan David, although he's not as good as we want him to be straight away. Botman, who's such a great centre-back who really is going to make a difference. Lihaji, who's going to be good in the future. They really did some smart recruiting, and they didn't need to recruit too many players to be as good as they were already last season. But I think retaining the core of their squad, and they already know that Osimhen was going to leave and that Gabriel Magalhaes was going to leave, so finding two players to replace them almost perfectly, Botman replacing Gabriel Magalhaes and Osimhen being replaced by, I guess, both Yilmaz and Jonathan David is definitely a feat. And in the meantime, they made $15 million benefit. You got to thank Luis Campos for being able to sell Osimhen for so much money to Napoli. I think Lille just deserve to be second on that ladder, because even though they lost their best scorer, they're still at the top of the ladder, and even though they lost that defender that was so strong for them, they are still second on the ladder, and they're still yet to lose a game, even though they've already played against some strong teams, against Rennes, against Lille, against Marseille, excuse me. So I'm really excited about seeing Lille in Europa League this season and how they're going to perform in Ligue 1 as well. I wouldn't put it past them to end up being second behind Paris Saint-Germain with the squad that they have and with the coach that they have. And again, we say it every time, but Luis Campos as your consultant as far as recruitment and scouting always helps as far as Lille is concerned. Second on my ladder. Top of the ladder, obviously, there's only one team left for that farmers market. It's Rennes. Rennes, such a great recruitment by Rennes. They got Terrier for 12 million, Aguerd for 5 million, Girassi for 15 million, Gomis for 10 million, Rugani on loan, Doku for 26 million. In the meantime, they lost Doumbia for 3 million, Loriente 4 million, Dacunia 1 million, Mendy 25 million, Rafinha 17 million plus bonus, which will bring them to 25 million, and they loaned Boé, Gelin, and a few more players. The first Mercato for Florian Maurice as the sporting director for Rennes, and just a very successful Mercato for Rennes. Again, the simple fact that they were able to, and sorry, I forgot Dalbert. They also got Dalbert from Inter Milan, the very last one. The simple fact that they were able to recruit players Terrier, Aguerd, Girassi, Gomis, potentially Rugani, and Dalbert are all going to be in the starting lineup, and while modifying their starting lineup so much, they're still able to be on top of the ladder, show how smart that recruitment was and how, I guess, targeted the recruitment was. Obviously, losing Edouard Mendy was never going to be easy, the goalkeeper, but finding Alfred Gomis to replace him is a very good bet, a very good idea. He's a little bit older, and he's a little bit more experienced. I think they have a very balanced team. I think they kept Camavinga, so this is enough to say that they made it as far as their Mercato goes. But Mbaye Niang was a very good striker, but maybe was causing a bit of grief behind the scene. And finding Sekou Girassi, who's been amazing at the beginning of the season, is a great purchase for Julien Stéphan and his team. I think the main thing will be to be able to integrate those players within the club, and I'm talking about Rugani and Dalbert from Juventus and Inter, but those players are going to bring that European experience that Rennes might lack for their first season ever in Champions League. Having a player who's played with Juventus and who was said to be the future best player 5 years ago, he still has that experience playing with the best players, some of the best players in the world, and he's going to bring that to Rennes. And same for Dalbert, a great left back who's been often linked with moves to Marseille. Now playing for Rennes is going to really help that left back position, and is going to be a great substitute to Mawassa. Mawassa, who's right now injured anyway, so he's probably gonna start playing and give Traoré the ability to actually play on his right wing where he's best. I think loaning a player like Boé is a very good idea because he needs the experience so he can come back next season and be better. And like I said, selling Rafinha was probably a matter of opportunity, and an opportunity came at the right time, and he's done some great things for Rennes. So I think they have the players behind to be able to succeed. Del Castillo, namely, who's always substituting Rafinha, I think is more than good enough to start. And the last one that I haven't talked about yet is the young recruits, Doku. 26 million, 18-year-old player. I think it's just a great recruitment. I think finding a player like this, it doesn't happen often. You might make a mistake and you might be wrong, but I doubt that they were wrong, and I think it's really a very, very good first Mercato for Holbeck, the new president, Maurice, the new sporting director, and Julien Stéphan, who's been here for a while now. That's it for the farmers market. Thank you for being with me for episode 8. So there was definitely a lot of talking. I hope everyone heard about their team. If you have any feedback or any comments, feel free to send them my way. I thought this podcast was going to be a little bit shorter, like I said, but look, I still spoke for about an hour, so I hope everyone enjoyed it. I might do another podcast next week talking about Les Bleus. Les Bleus are playing tomorrow against Ukraine, and then we'll play Portugal and Croatia for the Ligue des Nations League. I might talk about it after the 3 games, just to give a bit of a that's what happened in the 3 games for France, and then after that we're back in Ligue 1, and we're going to see if that farmers market really worked well for our teams. Thank you very much for listening again. Thanks for being great supporters of the Farmers Corners FC, French football with the accent. Looking forward to talking about France again. Thank you. Bye-bye.